Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh. Welcome to another in the Sikh Dharma International How-To video series. In this video, we will look at how to take a hukam from the Sri Guru Granth Sahib, with both an all-Gurmukhi single volume or beer and a multi-language, multi-volume set. First, you probably want to know what the hukam is. Well, hukam is short for Hukamnama, which literally means divine order or divine command. It can be seen as a directive from the divine, but this is also about seeking alignment with the universal order of the world in which we live. As we see the Sri Guru Granth Sahib as being the embodiment of Guru, or that which takes us from the dark to the light, then the words of the Guru, the Shabad Guru, can guide and instruct us. So the hukam is a reading of a section of the Sri Guru Granth Sahib, selected at random. It can be done at any time and by anyone, following specific protocols, which we will discuss in a moment. The reading of the hukam is always done at the end of a Gurdwara program, but it can also be done at other times. Wherever there is a daily morning prakash or ceremonial opening of the Sri Guru Granth Sahib, then the hukam is read, as it is also read when the performing of the evening sukhasan or ceremonial closing of the Sri Guru Granth Sahib. But a hukam can also be read whenever one needs guidance or clarity with a challenge or problem. The request for divine guidance may be made within the ardas that precedes the reading of the hukam. Observing the proper protocol, anyone can seek this guidance themselves, or they can ask someone else to read a hukam for them. Next, you will want to know why we might want to hear the hukam. Well, this is an opportunity to open yourself to be guided by the divine, infinite consciousness embodied within the words of the Sri Guru Granth Sahib. Whether you can understand the hukam in Gurmukhi or in translation, the impact of the words can be equally powerful. Listening to the original language, it has a poetic beauty and a subtle transforming energy we call nod. This nod can impact our consciousness even when we do not understand the meaning of the words. When we can understand the meaning of the words of the hukam, we encounter another dimension of experience. Often powerful metaphoric imagery is used to reveal deeper understanding of the challenges of life. And at other times, the simple and direct words speak with a kind of blunt clarity. Somehow, the hukam always touches something within us, each of us interpreting the impact in our own way. And finally, you will want to know how to take a hukam. This video will begin with the protocols around taking a hukam with an all-Gurmukhi single-volume copy of the Sri Guru Granth Sahib. There will be many steps in this protocol that will either be directly the same or very similar when taking a hukam with a multi-language, multi-volume copy of the Sri Guru Granth Sahib. Before interacting with the Sri Guru Granth Sahib by taking any hukam, it is required that you remove your shoes, wash your hands, and cover your head. Then, before taking the hukam, it is customary to recite the ardas, standing before the Sri Guru Granth Sahib. If you would like to know more about the ardas, please view our video in this series, How to Recite the Ardas. The process of taking a hukam can be performed by a single person, or if desired, others can give assistance where needed and appropriate. For this discussion, we will assume that the Sri Guru Granth Sahib has already been placed in prakash, ceremonial opening, and placed on a manji sahib, low table, or a palki sahib, low table with attached architectural cover above. Sitting in attendance of the Sri Guru Granth Sahib, we prepare to take the hukam. Any simple Gurbani mantra or short shabad may be chanted for a short time leading up to the time of the reading of the hukam as a Mangala Charan or invocation. During this short chanting, the Chodi Sahib or ceremonial horsehair whisk may be waved above the Sri Guru Granth Sahib a few times. The ramalas, or cloths covering the Sri Guru Granth Sahib, can now be taken in hand at the leading edge and gently folding back to reveal the pages of the Sri Guru Granth Sahib. The next step is to gather most or all of the Sri Guru Granth Sahib, holding the pages together in an upward position. Then a random page is chosen and the Sri Guru Granth Sahib is open to that page, allowing the left hand and the right hand pages to return to the original position. There are some variations in the traditions used to identify which shabad or section to read. For this presentation, we have tried to keep this procedure basic and simple, but there are some rare situations that are not covered by the directions given here. There is a free-form approach and a more formulaic approach. Using the free-form approach, one simply allows their eyes to settle somewhere on the left or right-hand page. Wherever the eyes settle, that becomes the section to read for the hukam. Then one simply finds the beginning of that section to start the reading. As an option, we offer one way of using a more formulaic approach. After opening the Sri Guru Granth Sahib, the person taking the hukam then looks at the verse at the top of the left-hand page to see if it begins at the top of that page. If it does not, then the page is turned to seek the actual start of that verse on the previous page. There are three main situations to be prepared for when taking a hukam in regard to how the composition form affects this protocol. The first is the most common, where there is simply a heading that lists the name of the rag, like the rag Dhanasri, followed by the identification of the author of the shabad, like Mahela Panjwa, referring to the fifth Guru, Guru Arjan. The hukam would begin there and go until the next heading. The second situation is when the hukam comes from within a var, or a long bani or extended composition. In this situation, there are no headings. There are many bodhis, poetic compositions of moderate length, and sloks, short poetic compositions in couplet form. Here, the hukam will begin with the first shlok and continue until the beginning of the next shlok. Please note that a hukam beginning with a shlok may include other headings which simply begin with Mahela and a number indicating the Guru who wrote this shabad. And it will usually include a bodhi before the next shlok. When you see another shlok coming up, you will know to end the hukam on the last line before the next shlok. The third situation for the hukam could be where the composition was written not by one of the Gurus, but by a Bhagat, or mystic poet from another tradition, like Bhagat Kabir. In this situation, you have to look to the numbers at the ends of the lines. The first step is to find the line that ends with a simple number 1, with 2 vertical lines on both sides. This indicates the end of the first line of a composition. Working backward, then you can look for the beginning of that first line, which usually comes after a number signifier that has 2 or 3 numbers separated by double vertical lines on both sides. It is allowed and helpful, although not required, to begin by reading the heading of the beginning of the major section, which mentions the name of the Bhagat. Then read the smaller selection until the next set of multiple numbers at the end of the line. Then all the congregation says, Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh. My purity belongs to the divine, and all victory belongs to the divine. And then the Ramalas are then drawn back to their original position, covering the Sri Guru Granth Sahib. In congregations where the primary language is not Punjabi, a translation of the hukam in the local language may now be read aloud. This is usually done by using a secondary translated copy of the Sri Guru Granth Sahib. The appropriate volume may be held in the hands or placed on a folding bookstand as the corresponding section of the Sri Guru Granth Sahib is read to the congregation. And again, after the translation has been read, then the congregation together says, Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh. At this point, the following lines, written by Guru Gobind Singh, are usually sung. सब सिकन को हुक्म है, Guru Manyo Grantha. 3 times. All who are Sikhs follow the hukam to recognize the Sri Guru Granth Sahib as their living Guru. It is possible to take a hukam with only a translated copy of the Sri Guru Granth Sahib. The translated copies are available in various configurations of 2 volumes or up to 8 volumes. Usually these translations have both the original Gurmukhi along with a translation. Using a translation is mostly the same as using an all Gurmukhi single volume copy. The protocols of respect would be the same, with hands washed, heads covered, and shoes removed. Ideally, when there is more than 1 volume, all the volumes can be placed on a shared manji or low table, avoiding any stacking of 1 volume over another, and they all would be covered with rumalas. When using a translation that has multiple volumes, then 1 volume can be chosen at random, and following the same procedure as above, that single volume is opened, gathering some pages from left and some pages from right, and opening at random. The next step is the same for all situations of taking a hukam, in terms of where to begin reading and where to end, as we have already outlined in the All Gurmukhi single volume example given earlier.
Adpurna, Madpurna, Antapurna Paramesare.
If Gurmukhi is available in the translation volume, and if there is someone who can read it, then the hukam is first read in Gurmukhi, followed by the translation. If there is not Gurmukhi in the translation, or if there is no one who can read the Gurmukhi, then the hukam can simply be read in translation. From here on, the hukam procedure is the same as that for the All Gurmukhi volume, with the congregation calling out Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh, followed by the same lines of Guru Gobind Singh's Saba Sikana Ko Hukam Hai. That concludes the procedures and protocols for taking a hukam. It is assumed that if there is an ongoing program after the hukam, that the Sri Guru Granth Sahib would remain in Prakash. Otherwise, the Sri Guru Granth Sahib will be placed in Sukhasan, the closing ceremony, to be placed in repose. On behalf of Sikh Dharma International, we would like to thank you for joining us for this video. We have done our best to ensure the accuracy of this content and apologize for any errors. Please check back periodically for the release of other new videos in this series. Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh. Jai